Hello, sixth grade. Happy Wednesday or Thursday or whenever you're watching this. This week we are learning about our muscles and our bones. We use these things to move about life. And today, specifically, we're going to talk about joints. Now, the joints of the body are where two or more bones meet together. We have joints all over the place, right? In my finger, for example, I have multiple bones that bend in multiple places. Each place that a bone meets a bone, it can move. Not all of the joints in our body are mobile. There are actually joints in your head fusing together the different bones that make up your skull. Those don't move. And that's good because your skull protects your head. But most of our joints need to move in order to help us move about life, right? We're going to learn about a couple of different places where joints exist and try to find something in our home that mimics or copies that structure. Let's start with the basics. On the screen here, you can see 4 types of joints. We're going to start at the top and move down. So starting from the top of our head, or at the neck, I guess, the first joint I want to tell you about is a pivot joint. A pivot joint is a joint that can move from side to side, right? In the case of my neck, we have stacked vertebrae, just like this. They are little discs that rest one on top of the other, and although they don't have a ton of mobility, they can rotate over each other. So think of it as one disc and another, and they can slide on each other like this. So pivot joint in the neck. Okay. In an owl, they can pivot their head almost all the way around because their muscles are loose enough that they can do that. Although our joints could do that, we have muscles connecting here in the neck that stop us from moving after a certain point. The second is in the shoulder. The joint in our shoulder is called a ball and socket. This joint is pretty mobile. It can move in a lot of ways. I can move my arm all the way around. I can go up the sides, over this way, right? You can think of a ball and socket just like the name implies. The end of your humerus bone, this bone in your arm, is like a ball. And then the top of your shoulder is like a little bowl or a socket. And in this case, the ball gets to move around in the socket, right? So if the shoulder is this bowl and the ball is your arm bone, it can move around in a bunch of ways. Obviously, it can't go over this bone, which is why I can't reach my arm any further over past my head. So ball and socket. This also exists in your hip. The bone of your femur, that big bone in your leg, ends in a ball, and the hip has a socket. So your leg can move around like this as well. A hinge joint is next. Hinge joints exist in your elbows and your knees. The two bones that meet, again, are the humerus, this big bone up here, and in your wrist or your forearm, you actually have 2 bones, the radius and ulna, and where those bones meet is called your elbow. A hinge joint can fold and open in a single direction, and it has a stopping point, right? I cannot bend my arm any more than this, but I can bend it back and forward, right? It's not meant to bend side to side too much because that rotation is actually a different joint, rotating your arm and your shoulder. The hinge joint in your elbow just moves 180 degrees. Is that a flat line? Sure. A hinge joint also exists in your knee, doing the same thing, closing and opening. Hinge joints. And the fourth joint we're going to learn about is in your wrist. This is an episodial joint. Episodial, okay? What that means is that it, like the elbow, can bend forward and backward. It can also move side to side. So move side to side, forward, and backward. It also has a stopping point. I shouldn't be able to bend it much further than this, or down too much further here. And same with side to side. I can't pull it all the way from one side to the other. This does not work like my shoulder. It's not a ball and socket that just can roll any which way. It's not a hinge joint because it can move further than just the one direction. It can go in both directions and side to side. So in recap, neck is a pivot joint. Your shoulders and hips are ball and socket. Your elbows and knees are hinge. And your wrists and ankles are episodial. Okay? Your task is to go find something in your home that moves, where two or more things are joined together and moving. These things are mimicking our bones, right? How we move. I want you to find something that moves and try to identify which type of joint it has. If you go to the Flipgrid video, I'll show you an example of what a response will look like. And then your task is to go find an object in your home that moves, identify the type of joint it has, and show me where you can find that same type of joint in your body. Good luck.